Hello friends, good morning. My name is Akash Sanjay Khobragade. I am a coordinator at Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge and PhD scholar at Delhi University. Professor Karunyakara is a Dalit historian and he is the founder of Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. The idea behind his institution is to give academic space to scholars, doctors and professors who are engaged in the field of Dalit studies. Today, we are going to have our 19th lecture under Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. And this lecture is a part of a series which we started on April 2025, 14th of April 2025, on the occasion of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Jayanti. Professor Karunyakara are going to chair this session, and I request Dr. Darshana Mishram to welcome and introduce our guest, our chair, Dr. Darshana Mishram.
Thank you, Akash. I am Dr. Darshana Mishram, teaching sociology at Yashwant College, Wardha, and coordinator of Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. So, Professor Dr. Leela Karunyakara is a former Vice Chancellor and founder of Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge. He is the author of The History of Identity and Modernization of Buddhism. After completing his PhD from JNU, New Delhi, Dr. Karunyakara joined as an assistant professor in the School of Ambedkar Studies, Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, a Center University, Lucknow. He introduced the Dalit History course in the MA History program. He was instrumental in introducing 50% reservation of SC/ST students in the BBAU admissions. He founded Ambedkar University Dalit Students Union in 2000 and Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar Center University SC/ST Teachers Association in 2006. He joined as director cum professor in the Babasaheb Ambedkar Sidho Kanu Murmu Dalit and Tribal Studies Center, Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalay. He held post of Dean of School of Culture and former Vice Chancellor of the University. This is a brief introduction of the respected chairs. Please welcome sir to this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Darshana. Now I request Dr. Smita Bhagat to please welcome and introduce our today's key speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akash. It's an honor for me to give an introduction of such a highly and intellectual professor. Professor Ravi Kumar is the professor and head of the Department of History at Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar Central University, Lucknow. His area of specialization includes modern Indian history with a focus on environmental history, economic history, and the studies from the ecological perspective. He has authored one monograph, 2 edited books, and published over 90 research papers in reputed journals and edited volumes. Seasoned academic, he has presented 65 papers in national and international conferences and delivered 25 public lectures. Professor Ravi Kumar has also guided 8 MPhil and 12 PhD scholars. His current research focuses on Indian economic history from an Ambedkarite perspective, reflecting his commitment to integrating social justice and ecological thought in historical studies. So this is the brief introduction of today's honorable guest. Being a coordinator, I heartily welcome you, sir. It's a warm welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Smita Bhagat. Today, Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge is going to have its 19th lecture, and this lecture is going to be delivered by Professor Ravi Kumar, and he's going to deliver his lecture on Dalit Feminism Theory and Praxis. This is the new dimension which we are going to discuss in Dalit studies and which is very important for all of us. Thank you. I request Professor Ravi Kumar sir to please deliver his lecture.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, shall I go ahead?
Yeah, please, sir, please.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you very much. Dr. Smita and Akash for very generous introduction, which I don't deserve, by the way. I would like to start with my humble thanks to Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Studies. This being my second lecture, it's like almost like a homecoming. So you're all familiar to me, and then it became so much that I became an organic part of your institute. And thank you very much for giving this wonderful opportunity. And I would also like to thank my mentor and my friend and my collaborator, Professor Karunyakara, for giving this wonderful opportunity. And then one more point I would like to clarify. I'm not an expert on either feminism or Dalit feminism. I'm a kind of tourist, not the explorer. So the distinction, Sharmila Regi makes a feminist as an explorer, a feminist as a tourist. So I prefer myself to be termed as a tourist who would like to see feminism from ecological perspective, by the way. That was my interest, because being specialized in environmental history, my main interest was ecofeminism. By the way, by making my tourist endeavor into feminism, I was deeply attracted by the kind of potential it offers to the human society. Thereby, so whatever I'm sharing here, it's not coming from a highly scholarly pursuits, rather an academician who is interested in Dalit studies, an academician who is interested in feminist studies. Therefore, whatever I share here, they're all tentative, subjective to be corrected. With these few things, let me get into my presentation. As Akash already introduced the topic, my topic is a Dalit feminism theory and practice. And then I give less importance to practice, more myself confined to theory. Why I'm interested in theory? Let me start with my fundamental conviction. Like, people often say that knowledge is a power, as rightly pointed out by Michel Foucault. But then I don't subscribe to that idea, because that's very superficial. What I believe in, it's not the knowledge, it is theory is the power. Rather, I call it as, theorization is the power. Why I call it theorization is the power? Human society always lives with theories. My definition of theory, my normative definition of theory is, theory means nothing but a perspective of an individual, an outlook of an intellectual, and then an outlook of intellectual which is research, which is proved either tentatively or conclusively with wider empirical as well as qualitative factors. So let me make it very simple. Theorization is something which you create a knowledge perspectives, because knowledge perspectives are the only ways in which human beings live. We live in, and we're all living in a kind of networking knowledge. So this knowledge is produced with the help of theories, whether in social science, whether in humanities, or whether in sciences. Okay, so essentially, theorization gives you the power to define others. Theorization gives you the capacity to not only represent about yourself, but also define others. In a way, it does two essential functions in the knowledge. That is, it represents an individual, a community, a group, okay, into the mainstream. At the same time, it questions the mainstream. Okay, that is a way, I think, I justify myself saying that it's not the knowledge, it is the theory which gives you actual power. Okay, so that's my starting point. Now I would like to apply that concept into Dalit feminism. Now, why I'm interested in Dalit feminism, especially it's the theoretical part, is simply because as a student of world history, we're all students of history. If you look at Euro-American academia, from where we get most of the concepts, by the way. Ever since we have enlightenment, development of capitalism, development of mercantilism, development of modern world, quote unquote, what you have is you have a promise being made by enlightenment as an ideology, which says, like utilitarian ideology, you call it as, that utilitarian ideology says empathetically that best possible life shall be given to best possible number of the members of the society. That's a promise was made by most of the enlightenment thinkers, okay? But then somewhere or other, that promise was not kept. We are all aware of that. That promise was not kept, and only some sections were able to capture either power in terms of politics, in terms of economy, in terms of culture, in a way that, even though enlightenment says universal man, but in actual sense, you have benefits for the few and then, disbenefits for many. So this is actually a gap between the promise and then practice in Western world. That's the reason why feminism, in fact, why I was pulled to feminism. Feminism was perhaps the first and foremost ideology which questions the promise of, enlightenment man, universal man. And feminism was the first ideology which actually attacks the universal promise being made by most of the enlightenment philosophers and then governments, okay? And we have some examples. How feminism as a thought develops in Euro-American academia and then travels to India. I'm trying to say that. You have example coming from England. You have Mary Wollstonecraft, very celebrated feminist, who has written a wonderful book called Vindication of Rights of Women. That considered to be almost like a foundation text for feminism. Mary Wollstonecraft questions lack of political rights to women, lack of voting rights to women, lack of employment opportunities to women, quote unquote, lack of material benefits to women. Thereby, Mary Wollstonecraft emerges as the most controversial figure in Europe, especially in England. And not only that, she was the one who made women issues as a public phenomena. Okay. And then if you come to French Revolution is a very celebrated incident, we know that. But then in the French Revolution, we have Declaration of Rights of Women for the first time. Very strong political statement being given by women. And then Olympe de Gouges, in her Declaration of Rights of Women, demands more than 20 rights for the women, including voting rights, including voting to many, many other things. Thereby, England and France became a kind of conceptual epicenters of feminism. And then the same spirit could be seen in America as well. In America, in 1844, I remember, there is something called a Declaration of a Difference. Okay. And I just want to give you a feel that in Europe as well as America, you have questions being raised by some of the women theoreticians, intellectuals, activists, and politicians, and public figures. And they began to openly challenge governments. They began to challenge established norms. And they began to challenge even democratic setup in those countries, saying that women are left out of such a wonderful promise being made by enlightenment. This is a starting point. Why I'm so fascinated about this ideology is that I think emancipatory ideology, emancipatory thinking, in fact, started by feminism. This is what we had observed. It is a feminism which had made the dominant enlightenment ideology as a critique. So therefore, I think feminism is a first critical ideology, I call it rather, first critical ideology which questions the dominance. And I think most of the thinkers, including Marx, including many other thinkers, they have borrowed from this criticality. So the notion of criticality against the tradition, against established ideas, I think supplied by feminism in the beginning, and then that feminist spirit from Euro-American world gradually traveled to India. I'm not here to say that in India, in Indian traditional India, we don't have any feminist-oriented thought. We do have. As academician, I'm acutely aware of we have very strong feminist tendencies in Indian thought as well, having due recognition to that. But however, a feminist ideology as a modern ideology, in that sense, we could see its evolutionary genesis in Euro-American world. And then the spirit somehow did not come to India for a long period of time. But nevertheless, the Western feminism, I call it as a classical feminism, it had three underlying points. It has highlighted three underlying points. It highlighted point number one. It says women are not weaker sex. That's what they start with. For example, we have Simone de Beauvoir, who has written a wonderful celebrated book called Second Sex. Okay. No, Western feminism says women are on par with the men. So they're not inferior, either biologically or intellectually, even otherwise also. Therefore, the first important foundational point of Western feminism, classical feminism, is that men and women are absolutely equal. If not practically, but notionally. Okay. And they're absolutely equal in terms of all other aspects. Therefore, the first value established by Western classical feminism is absolute equality of gender. We call sex. We call, whatever may be. Okay. That's number one point established Western feminism. Number two, it had transformed itself into an activism. It not only advocated about ideology, but also it emerges as a kind of an activism, very active activism, which transformed itself into very strong women-centric movements across the Europe, okay? And then French Revolution is itself a witness. We have several parallel women movements took place in French Revolution. It was followed by several women movements in different parts of Europe. So I'm not going to details into that. And the third important factor, which again highlighted by Western feminism, and it's a theory, is that women as a central point of human analysis. This is, I think, everlasting contribution being made by Western feminism. Western feminism was being able to put gender, women, at the low key of human analysis, which means that, like, see, it says that most of the human epistemology, it's centered on, male-centric epistemology. Thereby, it decenters, it attempts to decenter the male-centric epistemology and then proposes very fascinating new conception that is, human society should be understood from women perspective. So these are the three foundational pillars I believe in, or everlasting contribution that are being made by Euro-American world. And those three important contributions travel to different parts of the world along with the colonization. And those three important points were absorbed by different countries in a different way, including India. So this is, I think, beginning of theorization. As I said in the beginning, theory gives you the capacity to represent yourself, at the same time, define yourself, at the same time, put your interest into the universal domain of knowledge. Okay. Now, I just give a pause to the global level gender theorization and its contribution. Then I'll come to India. I mean, how that such a theorization had impact upon India. And then it's impossible for me to capture how genesis of feminist ideology took place, because it's a very vast area. Therefore, I myself narrow down to Dalit feminism, because we have a lot of other variants of feminism. Now, in my section number 2, I will briefly try to tell you how Dalit feminism had its own genesis in Indian subcontinent, and what are the demands that are being made by Dalit feminist ideology. Now, this is popularly called by one of the important theoretician of Dalit feminism. I will come to that later, Gopal Guru and then Sharmila Regi. In section number 3, I will deal with them. But Sharmila Regi uses the concept of axis of Dalit feminism. Axis means the entire Dalit feminism based upon one epistemological axis. That is known as Pandit Ramabai, Jyotiba Phule, and Ambedkar. Now, Sharmila Regi combines Phule, Ambedkar, and Ramabai ideology together and then creates what you call the first Dalit feminist axis, I call it as. Dalit feminist axis, I mean, they are the first people who attempted to theorize Dalit women as a subject in Indian subcontinent. Okay. Now let us now spend some time how this Ramabai, Phule, and Ambedkar attempted to formulate a kind of feminist theory, Dalit feminist theory, in order to make their larger emancipatory project. Remember, both of these three thinkers, be Ramabai, Phule, and Ambedkar, they're all working in the larger project of universal human emancipation of the oppressed. Emancipation of oppressed being their main project, they have given a very critical importance to women because for them, women represent the most victims of the human world. Okay. Now let me start with how this Ramabai, Phule, Ambedkar axis formulated Indian Dalit feminist theory, the pioneering theory. Okay. To start with, again, this Ramabai, Phule, Ambedkar axis has 3 underlying points to make it very simple for you. It starts with, number 1, a realization that women in India are subjugated. Taking the universalist position, taking generic position, the Dalit feminist ideology, Dalit feminist theory starts with, see, look, women, all women, in fact, cutting across all the sections, they're all victims of either patriarchy, either economic domination or social domination. There are multiple dominations which cripple the gender. Okay, and there are different kinds of dominations. And then again, we have to see these pioneers of Dalit feminism because I, in fact, forgot to tell you what is the need for us to specially focus on Dalit feminism. It is because if you look at what is happening in South Asia right now, what is happening in India right now, at one level, you have women participation into the public sphere in a very dynamic way. You have statistics. Now, Government of India tells us that, about 35% of workforce in India constitute women. And earlier, for example, before 2010, the participation of women in workforce, labor, whatever it may be, that was just confined to 15 to 20%. Now it has increased to 35%, which means if there are 100 laborers, 35 people are coming from women. Okay. Now some people are saying now it has reached to 40. Which means that in India, we have a very dynamic participation of women in the public sphere. And we have dynamic participation of women into different jobs and in different professions. Okay, we are aware of that. At another level, very paradoxically for me, at one level we have empowerment, at another level we have disempowerment. They are going simultaneously. Like, at one level, women are asserting. At another level, you have phenomenal, exponential growth of crime, violence against the women. National Crime Bureau records itself says that, in 2022, you have more than we have about 445,000 cases reported against the women. There are very paradoxical trends. You can see that at empowerment you have, at another level you also have. Therefore, somewhere you have to reconcile. Somewhere you have to see why this paradoxical trends are persisting, not only in India, in most of the developing countries. That's what I'm saying. It's a global level phenomenon. And Dalit feminism had several answers to this. And Dalit feminism has wonderful, inputs to tell us why this duality exists. Empowerment and disempowerment go together. Okay, that's the context I thought of telling in the beginning itself. Of course, I have made it very clear. Now, coming back to the axis I was talking about, Ramabai, Phule, and Ambedkar, we have to recognize the fact that it was a Phule who was a very pioneer in women question in India. Okay, that's why he's known as the father of social evolution very affectionately. Now, from Phule onwards, you have recognition in India that Indian women are victims. But then, what is the speciality of Dalit feminism is that within the women, you also have segregation. This is what the very important point of Dalit feminism. Phule says, well, while at one level, you have all the women were victims, but another level, women from Shudra and Ati Shudra, the words used by Jyotiba Phule, they are more susceptible for victimization. Okay, so one of the very important argument of Dalit feminism is that even though women are victims, but within the women, you also have Dalit women being, very susceptible for more victimization. Okay, that's very second important foundational point, like what Ambedkar, Phule, and Ramabai says. And at third level, Ambedkar, Phule, and Ramabai also says, look, it's not enough for us to say women are victim. It's not enough for us to say Dalit women are more victimized. It's very important for us to see what kind of solutions are to be contemplated and what kind of strategies to be taken off. Okay, I think Ambedkarism and a feminist version of Ambedkarism is all about that. Ambedkar very clearly mentions, along with the Phule, along with the Pandit Ramabai, that in India, the traditional Indian structure, okay, and the people call it as a Brahminical structure, and caste system, the social hierarchy, social stratification, and then the system of caste, which is structured based upon the birth, okay, and the stratification which was justified by traditions. Ambedkar says, and the dehumanizing aspects of the caste. And it's a remarkable perpetuation in South Asia until today. And then dehumanizing dynamics of the caste system. Ambedkar believes in remarkable career of the caste actually lies in controlling of women. That's what, Ambedkar's initial research paper on caste genesis and mechanism, he clearly laid out. Now, Ambedkar's caste and its mechanism should be seen as a feminist text, because he says very clearly that it is endogamy which is a loci of most of the caste system. It is endogamy with which the caste system, sociologists call quote unquote social stratification, and then hierarchy in Indian society continues with the help of several controls that are being imposed upon women's lives. Therefore, Dalit feminism, the pioneering Dalit feminism, recognizes very clearly that any reform that to be take place in India, any attempt to annihilate the caste in India, it has to do with women question. Okay, so therefore, my dear friends, what I'm trying to say here when I talk about Dalit feminism and its a genesis at the theoretical level, look, again, I'm sticking to theory. Phule, Ambedkar, Ramabai, they have formulated a formidable theory. They have created very sustainable theory, which says that women question should be addressed at one level, and more than that, Dalit women question should be addressed at another level. Because unless and until Dalit women problems are addressed, the larger level emancipation of women is not possible. Therefore, you can see an attempt here how powerful theory is and how powerful theorization process is. Like Phule was playing a very interesting politics. Ambedkar was playing very interesting politics. And Pandit Ramabai is playing very interesting politics. What they were doing by making women as a central point, they are universalizing, okay, they're generalizing the interest of oppressed. Not only that, by creating a theory, they were trying to create epistemological space for gender in India. This is what very important. Because right from Raja Ram Mohan Roy to till so many hundreds of the reformers in India, they talk about women question. They say that women should be reformed. But nevertheless, it is the men who are talking for women. This is very clearly seen. It is the men who represent the voice of the women. Of course, same thing was done by even Dalit feminism as well. But then the difference here is the women, the men who representing women, they mainly focused on the reforms to be undertaken in upper class and upper caste women. I'm not saying they never bothered about women of the lower caste. They do bother about that, but then that never became their central agenda. Addressing the specific issues of the Dalit women, Adivasi women, and other marginalized sections women, that was not a frontal issue for them, rather it was a supplementary issue. Whereas for Phule, Ramabai, and then Ambedkar, that is a central issue. The central issue was how to understand and then theorize the specific gender-specific experience of quote-unquote Dalit women. Okay, so therefore, from then onwards, you have a beginning of very fascinating, path-breaking Dalit feminism emanating from the axis of Ramabai, Phule, and then Ambedkar. It has created foundations in India based upon three pillars, what I already mentioned, that gender exploitation and women, Dalit women specificity, and then ultimately mainstreaming the gender experience of the women, Dalit women. That's what the main importance of Phule, Ambedkar, Ramabai was trying to do here. And they were trying to say that, look, in the knowledge, in the public policy, in the governance, and in all public life, the life experience of Dalit women should be located. That's what they're saying. Unless and until you do that, you cannot create gender empowerment policies. That is what, a wonderful beginning of Dalit feminist theory could be seen. Now I'll move on to having explained, having laid out the epistemological foundations being done by the Dalit axis trio, Ramabai, Phule, and Ambedkar. Now I will move on to what was the scenario. Now how Dalit feminism took shape in independent India. This is what we have to understand. The independent India has brought about euphoria. We are aware of that. In the 50s, in 1950s and 60s, especially 50s, entire Indian population was jubilant that we obtained freedom from British, and thereby we have become our own authors. This is what in euphoria exists in all the minds. But slowly, gradually, that euphoria began to take a back seat in 1960s and 1970s. Because again, the promises that were made during Indian national movement, the kind of assurances that were given during Indian national movement, somehow there was a hiatus. There was a big gap between promises being made and then an actual process that are being created. So thereby, marginalized sections, especially Dalits, they began to raise their voice. Especially, you can see that the vocal voice, you can see in Maharashtra, ever since Republican Party of India was established, you have beginning of neo-Buddhist movement in Maharashtra. Okay, and you have beginning of Dalit literature in Maharashtra, and you have beginning of Dalit literature even in South India, in different parts of the India, wherein most of the writers began to use the ideology and ideas of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and then began to question the dominant public policy, began to question the cultural values that are being created in India after independence, thereby making sure that, they said, we are not very comfortable with the kind of situation that is going on in independent India. And a reflection could be seen in the emergence of Dalit Panther movement. You are aware of that. And Dalit Panther movement has its own resonance in different parts of India. Thereby, you see emergence of very vocal, very strong Dalit voice in different parts of India, and then demanding distribution of resources, demanding annihilation of caste, and demanding more and more space in not only in the literature, knowledge, public policy, governance, politics, so on and so forth. So Dalits consistently, and Adivasis, the Dalits, and many other sections consistently began to demand more and more share into the governing process. And it was this context in which you have to understand how the second phase of Dalit feminism theorization emerges. The second phase of Dalit feminism emerges on account of, see, look, there is a gap. For example, if you look at literature, Dalit literature being produced by most of the Dalit Panther movement, and apparently it was mostly male-centric. Need not to tell that, not only that, most of the Dalit writers, somehow they were not very serious about. I'm not judgmental. I'm not saying that, I'm not making any serious statement. What I'm trying to say here, again, Dalit women somehow did not occupy the frontal space within the Dalit literature. We had to accept that, okay. So thereby, it has created a vacuum in Indian Dalit study. Thereby, women was compelled to come out to represent themselves because Dalit men were not performing the function of representing the interests of Dalit women. Thereby, you have beginning of second phase of Dalit feminist theorization. I think second phase of Dalit feminist theorization pioneered by Urmila Pawar, very popular writer. Urmila Pawar's book has created ripples in most of the states. Urmila Pawar's, anthology of Dalit women who has participated in Ambedkarite movement, who have participated in Mahasatyagraha and participated in the Scheduled Caste Federation. Urmila Pawar was being able to project the contributions that were being made by unsung Dalit women in the Ambedkarite movement. Now, Urmila Pawar make it very clear that it's not the men. On par with the men, women also contributed for consolidation of Ambedkar movement in different parts of India, not only in Maharashtra, in different parts of India, wherein women volunteers and then women participants and then women politicians, they had played a very significant role in popularization of Ambedkar ideology from gender perspective. So second phase of Dalit feminism starts with recognition of the role being played by women in Ambedkarite movement. Okay, so thereby you have some studies. I would like to mention, for example, following Urmila Pawar, you also have some non-Dalit women started writing about Dalit feminism. Okay, you have very popular Uma Chakravarti. Uma Chakravarti writings are very, very popular. We are all familiar with that. And she has created a very interesting pan-Indian book from gender and caste perspective. And needless to say that it is Uma Chakravarti who had mainstreamed Dalit feminism because we have to acknowledge her contribution. Okay. And she says, caste system creates different conditions for victimization of women. Now, the first important theoretical contribution of Uma Chakravarti is that she says caste create specific conditions. While in the hierarchy, in the topmost level, women were also victimized, but then their victimization is much different from the victimization that were subjected to or by the women located in the lower ladder. Thereby, Uma Chakravarti creates a very, very significant distinction at theoretical level that while women from upper strata have a less propensity for violence, And then women from lower strata, they have other different ways in which they were subjected to violence, victimization, marginalization, and many other forms of violence. Therefore, this is the beginning of second phase of gender theorization so far as Dalit theory is concerned. Okay. And then we also have a wonderful contribution being made by Charu Gupta from Uttar Pradesh. Charu Gupta, again, she has written several books and number of articles, and both Uma Chakravarti and then Charu Gupta and several other feminists, they were favorably disposed towards the caste question, but nevertheless, there is a problem. There is a problem in a Dalit feminism that was created by non-Dalit women. I'm not making these specific categories. These are the categories made by Gopal Guru. I will come to that point later. See, the problem as per Gopal Guru in the theorization on Dalit women by non-Dalit women is that non-Dalit women experience does not allow them to be more and more specific and sympathetic towards the critical problems of the Dalit women, specific women, okay? And that's why there is a criticism against Charu Gupta, the criticism against Uma Chakravarti, that they give more importance to Dalit patriarchy. They say that women were oppressed both by Brahminical patriarchy as well as Dalit patriarchy, and thereby making sure that Dalit patriarchy is equally responsible for victimization of Dalit women, okay? And then they don't make much distinction between Brahminical and Dalit patriarchy. Thereby, there is some kind of, liquidation of whole Dalit studies. And the kind of attempt being made, like, it's something like Dalits are responsible, Adivasis are responsible for their own plight. It implies the theoretical contribution, okay? So therefore, many Dalit feminists, many feminists who are very much disposed, genuinely disposed towards, Dalit issues, they say that such a theorization is not potential enough to represent the genuine concerns of the Dalitum. Thereby, you have beginning of latest, rather I call it as, recent theorization of Dalit women. I think this is the latest trend which is happening in India, which is happening across the world. You can see a lot of attention being given to Dalit feminism in several universities in Europe, several universities in America, and then fascinating research is being done even in India also. Okay, now let me now explain about the latest trends that are happening in Dalit feminist theorization. Apart from several other especially after 2000, rather, mid 90s and then 2000, you have several new innovations that were taking place in Dalit feminism at the conceptual level, at the theoretical level. Now, why that shift? I call it as a shift towards, I call it as a reflective turn. I'm using the word very consciously. While the first and second feminist theory focused on description, the latest turn towards feminism is a reflective turn. Reflective turn means, by using postmodernism, by using inputs from post-structuralism, by using inputs from linguistic turn. The several new feminists, they were trying to come up with more in-depth, penetrating, and inclusive analysis on the gender problems, especially with regard to Dalit women. Okay, now there are two things responsible for latest trend, which I'm talking about. That's called a reflective turn. We can also call it as a linguistic turn in the Dalit feminist theory. We can also call it as, to some extent, post-structuralist turn, which gives more importance to language rather than empirical details. And then why this postmodern turn, post-structuralist turn, and linguistic turn taking place in India? Because they are not comfortable with the Marxist theorization. We have several Marxist feminists. Okay, they also talk about Dalit feminism. They also talk about Dalit women. Like you have, for example, you have Nivedita Menon, for example. Nivedita Menon writes about Dalit women being a Marxist scholar. Okay, and you also have Urvasi Bhutala, again, who has established, Kali for Women Press and then published several books. Okay, you also have Tanika Sarkar, and she has published several fascinating books. Now, most of the Marxist feminists, they do address Dalit feminism, but again, what they do that they subscribe to the idea of class, which means that they locate all the women into the single, that is called single axis theory. Single axis theory means women invariably, all women are victims. Of course, some women are more victims, but then they refuse to give importance to subcategorization within the women. They do recognize that Dalit women face some different problems, but then they don't seriously engage specifically with those problems. That's the reason why most of the young scholars, young feminist scholars, academicians located in US universities, European universities, they have moved away from Marxist theorization and they began to evolve their own theorization, which I call it as a reflective tone. Now, why this reflective tone takes place? It is because of the two factors for me, because each theory has its own material conditions. Each theorization rooted in certain material specific conditions. Now, let us understand why we have a post-structuralist turn in a Dalit feminist theory in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. Okay. Factor number one is that most Dalit women, Adivasi women to some extent, but mostly Dalit women, now they have entered into university system. And then some of the women began to write. We have several fascinating writers. We have Challapalli Swarupa Rani from Andhra Pradesh. And then you have Meena Kandaswamy from Tamil Nadu. Okay. And you have several other, feminist writers who has began to write about Dalit problems. Now, what they began to say that once the Dalit women acquired the intellectual reflective capacity, now Dalit women should use the most advanced literary theories and thereby making their own representation into the epistemological space. Okay, and most of the Dalit feminists, they began to say that if at all emancipatory ideologies to be created, in that emancipatory ideology, Dalit feminist ideology should be in the forefront. Okay, and there's this debate. In fact, this is the debate of Dalit feminism being a specific, Dalit feminism being a universal. There is a debate. Let me start this debate with Gopal Guru, because we all know Gopal Guru is a very doyen of Dalit studies. Gopal Guru. Now, Gopal Guru has written just 5 pages, small piece published in EPW. We know a very popular piece entitled "Dalit Women Talks Differently." Dalit Women Talks Differently is a very revolutionary article which was published in Economic and Political Weekly. Now, Gopal Guru comes up with a very interesting observation. Gopal Guru being a very abstract theoretician, a philosopher. Gopal Guru comes up with a new idea that, Dalit problems are specific and that all Dalit problems are product of certain conditions of the experience. Okay. And then Gopal Guru says the experience of the Dalits, experience of the Dalit women especially, that was a conditions with which Dalit feminist theory should be created. It's a very, very arrogant, very provocative statement what Gopal Guru makes, that Dalit issues, especially women issues, can well be. He didn't say that other non-Dalits can represent. It's not that. What he was saying, in a more inclusive way, in a more sophisticated way, in a more penetrating way, Dalit women problems can be represented by Dalit women themselves. Because he deploys a new idea, he deploys a very revolutionary idea. That is something called social position. Social position means your life conditions, your experience is sufficient for you to write about your own problems. That is called theory of experience. Now, Gopal Guru claim is most of the non-Dalit theoreticians who are working on Dalit issues, they are not experienced actually the kind of troubles that Dalit women undergoes. Therefore, whatever that is being represented on Dalit women by non-Dalit women may not have the same substance that was represented by Dalit women themselves. Therefore, Gopal Guru initiates a serious debate. Several people participated into that. Now, Gopal Guru says Dalit women not only talks differently, Dalit women theorize also differently. Okay. And then Gopal Guru's claim of a monopoly of Dalit theory to the Dalit feminist, it was questioned by Sharmila Regi. I think you are all aware of Sharmila Regi. She died young, and then she was a very dynamic, having a vast, in-depth knowledge about Dalit studies, as well as she's one of the fabulous theoreticians of the Dalit feminism, and she has written more than half a dozen books and participated in a debate with Gopal Guru in EPW, Economic and Political Weekly. Now, Sharmila Regi, responding to Gopal Guru, refutes Gopal Guru claim that Dalit feminism can only be represented better by Dalit feminists. She says it's not the case, And then she starts with, see, Dalit feminism is a universal feminism. Because for her, the problems of Dalit women are not only problems of Dalit women, but also most of the women in India encounter same kind of problems. Okay. Therefore, Sharmila Regi comes up with a very interesting thing that, Dalit feminism is a universal feminism in India. So thereby, she encourages most of the feminists to take up the Dalit feminism as an agenda. Thereby, she concludes that, the emancipation of Indian women lies in emancipation of Dalit women. So thereby, Sharmila Regi, perhaps one of the very unique scholar who provided universal dimension to Dalit feminist theory. And then she went to the extent of saying that Dalit women and their problems represent the essence of most of the problems of the Indian women. Therefore, the centrality of Dalit feminism should be Dalit women, not the non-Dalit women. Therefore, the debate still goes on between Gopal Guru and Sharmila Regi. Of course, Sharmila Regi no more. And from then onwards, you have beginning of latest advancements in the feminist theory. Now, let me spend some time briefly on the latest advancements in the feminist theory. There are two factors. There are two important theoretical factors, again coming from Western academia, responsible for latest advancements in Dalit feminist theory. Number one, I hope you must have heard about the notion of intersectionality. Intersectionality is a theory created by Kimberly Crenshaw. Okay, and she is being a legal scholar. She has developed the notion of intersectionality in the late 1990s. And by mid-1990s, the theory of intersectionality becomes extremely popular in America, Europe, and then it has to travel to India. Now, what is the theory of intersectionality? Let me spend some time, about 1 or 2 minutes. Intersectionality is a theory which says that women in America, they're called black women. Women in America, black women in America, they are victims of not single gender axis, rather they are victims of 3 important ideas, 3 important simultaneous processes. Number 1, their biological gender. They are susceptible for exploitation and violence by virtue of their biological gender. And secondly, they are more vulnerable because they are blacks, and they're much more vulnerable because they are economically weak. Getting my point here? Intersectionality is a theory which says that it's not a simple biological factor which make women more vulnerable. Along with the biological factor, you have certain social factors like race. In India, you have a caste, you have economic status. So thereby, Kimberly Crenshaw's theory of intersectionality says it's not that all women are victims. It's equally important for us to see how different social identities, racial identities, cultural ideas operate simultaneously in order to exploit, victimize women. So it's a logical point here we have to observe. All women are victims, but at the same time, some women are more victimized, not just because of their biological gender, because of the kind of social identities, the kind of racial identities, the kind of social attitudes. So theory of intersectionality has created a revolutionary theoretical relevance all over the world. And intersectionality was pushed even by United Nations. Just a minute. United Nations, and then along with that, there is one more very fascinating feminist theory of intersectionality is very important. Along with the theory of intersectionality, as propounded by Kimberly Crenshaw, you also have Patrick Collins, another very path-breaking theoretician. Patrick Collins, she has written a book on Black feminism. Now, making sure that, see, what was coming to India in the post-90s, that it's not that women are victimized. That's an old story. What is more important for us is, just a minute. Some disturbance, please bear with me. This online has its own convenience. At the same time, it also has its own hiccups. You have to bear with that. I say there's a disturbance in my neighbor. Okay. Yeah, let me continue. What was happening in Euro-American world is that we have intersectionality coupled with racial studies. What I'm talking about. They say that, see, it's not that all women are victims. That's a very simple statement. All women are victims. But then that there is a degree of victimization. This is what very important contribution. That there is a spectrum of victimization. Okay, there is a whole lot of spectrum of victimization wherein some women are less susceptible, some women are more susceptible. Now, how do you capture the more susceptibility in terms of theory? Because you can simply pass a statement where all women are victims. But then that's not sufficient. That's very superficial. The theory of intersectionality and then Patrick Collins' theory of racial studies give you a theoretical and conceptual potential that you can capture the specific problems of Adivasi women. For example, let me give a simple example. If an Adivasi woman, a Dalit woman comes to the public, there are certain racial indications in nowadays. You can easily say that they are from certain background and look at your own attitude towards them. Because we all carry the subconscious gender attitudes. Okay. Now somebody comes up with a different dressing, and somebody comes up with different kind of ornaments, all the things. Our attitudes are conditioned by appearance, say social background, cultural sensitivity. Thereby, it's not that all males behave towards females in a certain specific way. What happens? Females' attitude and then their behavior towards women is conditioned by certain very important cultural, social factors. That is what Kimberly Renshaw says. If somebody is a black, for example, somebody is a colored people, for example, they are working in offices. She says they are more prone to the violence. Why they are more prone to violence? Because somehow the males think that they can easily get away from doing some kind of wrong to those women. Okay, they may not be caught because they are not powerful enough to fight their advances. So I hope it is very clear. I need not to explain again and again. Theory of intersectionality, theory of black studies, what it says that we have to capture the everyday experience of Dalit women. And we have to capture everyday forms of violence that are being perpetuated towards Adivasi women or other disadvantaged sections. Okay. There are 2 path-breaking books published in India. I suggest you people have a look at that. These 2 books are latest theoretical advancement, and then they are reflective of how Dalit feminism has reached its maturity nowadays. In fact, most of the Dalits should feel proud of that. They were not only theorizing about Dalit women, but also they are making Dalit feminism as a universal feminism, as rightly started by Sharmila Regi. There is a book into 2021 published by Routledge. The 2 authors, Sunaina Arya, she's working tremendous writings nowadays, Sunaina Arya and Akash Singh Rathod. Akash Singh Rathod is like a publication mission nowadays. He has published more than 10 path-breaking books on Dalit studies, and all of them are very sophisticated and theoretical. Sunaina Arya and Akash Singh Rathod, their book title is itself Dalit Feminism, a Reader. Theory of Dalit Feminism, a Reader. Which means that look at the kind of journey from Phule to Sunaina Arya, about more than 100 years. While Phule mentions about the conditions of the oppression, scholars are theorizing about how to understand those oppressions in a more sophisticated way. So this book of Sunaina Arya and Akash Singh Rathod, it has more than 15 essays. All those essays are designed to tell you about how Dalit feminist theory is advancing by the way of incorporating most sophisticated Euro-American as well as Indian theories in order to capture the everyday forms of violence, in order to capture everyday forms of lifestyles of the Dalit women, Adivasi women. And then just 2 months back, there is a book published in 2025. Again, very fascinating book by Charu Arya. It's available anyway. 2025, this book was published. Again, name of the Charu Arya and Nandita Dekha. The 2 together, again published. It is again published by Routledge. Again, it's a title, look at the title, Dalit Feminist Discourse. Published in 2025. And apart from Sunaina Arya, Charu Arya, and then Akash Singh Rathod, you also have several other fascinating scholars who are publishing wonderful stuff. I also suggest you people have a look at the Shailaja Payak. Shailaja Payak book, nowadays, she's writing in a very profusing way. You also have a Nandita Pan. You also have several other writers. Now you can see Dalit feminism now became hot topic, not only in India, in most of the South Asian countries, simply because, as I already mentioned in the beginning itself, that now India is unleashing its gender potential. Now you see, Gopal Guru sarcastically mentions that you see everywhere you see women. Everywhere you see women, every public activity you see women. In offices you see women, and even in several other conventional activities you could find women participation. So when India is moving towards gender parity in terms of labor, in terms of employment, it's very important for social science. It's very important for humanities, very important for psychology, in order to understand how women from margins live, how a male society behave towards a woman. I mean, what are the different factors, what are the different attributes that condition the behavior of the male towards the female, especially towards females from Dalit sections. So unless you capture all these complexities, you would not be able to come up with very goal-oriented, very target-oriented, object-oriented public policies. Okay, the public policies should be designed in tune with the kind of new theoretical innovations. Okay, so what I'm suggesting here, by borrowing theories from intersectionality, borrowing theories from critical race theories. Okay, now there is an attempt now in India being made in order to capture most of the psychological factors. This is a very important thing now. Earlier, feminism was giving importance to only empirical factors, qualitative factors. Now the latest reflective turn giving more importance to your inner psychological factors, your behavioral factors, even it goes into your subconscious factors. Because most of the latest Dalit theoreticians believe that it is our subconscious which trigger our conscious behavior. Now, how to capture subconscious level behavior of the male towards gender? This is what they're trying to do that, and they're trying to understand how caste system and how Dalit identity plays an important role in conditioning the behavior of the male population towards female population. Because if you don't understand that, the exploitation would be unabated. Exploitation will be perpetuated unless and until you unveil, unless and until you capture all those subtle, all those very minor, that is called microaggression in psychology. Microaggression means the way certain males, show their aggression in a very subtle way towards female, particularly if the women happen to be, I'm using the word female in a very positive way, women happen to be coming from marginalized sections like Adivasis, Dalit. Okay, so therefore they always resort to microaggression, and microaggression cannot be dealt with any penal code. Microaggression cannot be dealt with any policy framework. Microaggression, what I mean to say, microaggression means the way you pass comments, the way you look at the people, the way to show your body postures, the way you use your language, the way you stare at the people. They're also very important. We have to understand that. And if you don't capture those microaggressive attributes, you end up in a very bad way that you can't capture the root cause of everyday forms of gender violence, everyday forms of gender domination. So I'm very happy to see some of the Dalit theoreticians are taking the side, taking a universal side for the women, as rightly pointed out by Sharmila Regi. Because Dalit feminism has the panacea for most of the other women. Thereby, they're refuting Gopal Guru, saying that Dalit feminism is not just about Dalit feminism. Rather, Dalit feminism do represent the universal dimension wherein it benefits all the sections of the women. Okay. So therefore, that's way Dalit feminist theory becoming international. Dalit feminist theory becoming really relevant. Now, in my last section, I have gained 1 hour time. I will utilize that. Akash, I will stick to my time. I hope I'm not stretching, huh?
Yes, sir. So please take. Please, you have time, sir.
That's what I'm saying because I'm conscious of time. Okay. And then having narrated the story of theory of Dalit feminism, right from international Euro-American context, and it's a resonance in Indian context from Ramabai to Phule and Ambedkar, and then it's a reflection in the post-independent India, like Tarabai Shinde, other people, and then having again narrated how Dalit feminism as a theory became more complicated and more complex, more inclusive. Now I will move to my final section, which I am trying to create for myself. Hope other scholars will follow that. This is what my contribution in this lecture is located. What I feel, Dalit feminism from Phule to till Sharma Regi, as well as from Charu Arya 2025. It has mainly confined to only Dalit women as a character, which means the major limitation of these studies, what I feel, they look at Dalit women having some kind of universal interest only as a woman, like their mothers, like their daughters. They have their fixed life. They presume that Dalit women have the fixed life. It's not the case. Okay, the borrowing idea from Michel Foucault, the borrowing idea from Deleuze, again French thinker, and then borrowing ideas from again Sigmund Freud, classical thinker, you can assume that Dalit women is not just a category which represents the essence of Dalit. Rather, Dalit women have their own life. That's what Like for example, Dalit women, they have to encounter hospitals. They have to go there. There are midwives, mainly coming from Dalit background. In all over India, we know that. Whether in North India or South India, almost always midwives are from Dalit background. I may be corrected, because that's my experience. And then, in most of the time, the biomedical waste clearers are from mostly Dalit family background. Okay, I'm just giving an example. So therefore, Dalit feminist theory should expand itself into sectoral dimension. Like Dalit feminism can devote itself to how Dalit women, Adivasi women encounters the hospitals, medical profession, for example. Like how do they work there? And then sometimes if they go to hospital, what kind of treatment is given to them? Those things have not been captured in the existing literature. And secondly, my field, ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is dominated by two important figures right now in India. One is, Vandana Shiva. Okay, Vandana Shiva is a very popular ecofeminist. You also have many other theoreticians, The thing is, Dalit ecofeminism somehow treated as by Indian women are embodiment of nature conservation. And they deploy Chipko movement as an example, say that, look, all Indian women, they conserve resources. They are Shaktis, they are Devatas. Therefore, Dalit feminism, ecofeminism is all about Indian tradition. But if you look at the ecofeminism from Dalit lens, Dalit perspective, you get other way around. Now, Dalit women, they don't worship trees. and they don't have any intense admiration for natural resources. What they have is they want to use more and more natural resources. They don't want to worship trees. They want to use trees for their livelihood. They don't worship water, but they want to use the water for survival. So therefore, you get a very contrasting picture, which is quite different from that of what mainstream ecofeminism deals with. Similarly, you can also see how women encounter educational sphere. Shailaja Paik, she has come up with a wonderful pioneering research on how Dalit women encounter problems in educational sector. Right from being a girl student to till teacher, they're compelled to have a different experience than that of other non-Dalit women. Therefore, we have to capture that. So therefore, what I'm suggesting, what I shall be doing, in fact, I'm also developing a book on Dalit, the kind of conceptual link between Dalit feminism and ecofeminism. Hoping I will come up with this book very soon. But what I'm bidding for to the young scholars, that we have to connect these theoretical inputs of the Dalit feminism into different sectors. And if we don't connect Dalit feminist theory into different sectors, that will become only theory. The theory which has not been verified, the theory which is not useful to capture the larger experience of Dalit women. Okay. So therefore, if you want to establish more and more Dalit theorization, you have to take more and more inputs from other sectors. That's why I think, that's a real way to strengthen Dalit feminist theory. Okay. So therefore, I advise most of the young researchers, young scholars to take up the inputs from here and then use those inputs in order to capture your local histories, your regional histories, okay, and then your sectoral histories, and then your other forms of the. So I think there's one way to contribute to the Dalit feminist theory. Okay, last but not least, I would like to conclude by saying, I reiterate where I started. I say that simple knowledge is not enough. But how such a knowledge is used for, number one, emancipation, number two, empowerment. Okay, number three, how you are facilitating marginalized sections for gaining access to meaningful life. I think Ambedkar life is a wonderful example. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar life is a wonderful example. And then vis-a-vis Mahatma Phule life is a wonderful example. I think they're the one, especially Ambedkar. It's not that, he has went to Columbia, he went to London School of Economics, he gained some kind of knowledge. That's a different one. But then look at his intellectual journey, the way he used his academic background in order to not generate knowledge, in order to theorize. That's what I'm saying. Because Ambedkar's simple theorization of the caste has created a paradigmatic change in the entire global society. The reason why now Ambedkar emerges as a global icon, needless to say that, Some of the foreigners I used to meet, I used to tell me, your Ambedkar is already popular. Why is so popular? Because, because he has theorized. He has theorized how society excludes certain sections with some kind of, social strategies. So I call it as, while Marxism and other European ideology, they say that the economy is very important for exploitation. But Ambedkar says economy is very important, but at the same time, economy itself cannot create social distinctions. It is the social attitudes. It is the social outlooks. This is a social intercourse, which is more important. So therefore, I call it as a social mode of, not production, social mode of differentiation. A social mode of differentiation, because I think perhaps Ambedkar was a very powerful theoretician in that sense, That's the reason why he's becoming globally popular, because he said it is society which actually creates all these distinctions. If you want to deal with these problems of marginalized sections, if you want to deal with the problems of exclusion, you cannot simply focus on economy. Economy is one part. But economy distribution and economy benefits are actually appropriated by social structure. Now, if you don't tackle the social structure, however developed your country is, however developed your communities, the distribution will never take place. Okay. So therefore, it's a kind of very, very universalistic theory, what I call, what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar proposes. That universal theory is nothing but it is a socially deterministic theory. So therefore, I stand by what I said in the beginning that knowledge is not enough. Theorization is more important. That's what Gopal Guru, I conclude saying, Gopal Guru says, look, in Indian academia, some sections are relegated to empirical studies, some sections are relegated to theory. Now, I'm very happy to see many youngsters are coming forward, but then to theorize, it's not easy. This is what, again, we have to take inspiration from Ambedkar. Again, theorization is nothing but making yourself more assertive, more confident, and then more vocal, and then more scholarly. This is what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar expects from all of us. Because superficial solutions to public life, superficial empirical solutions to public life, it has serious limitations. We have to take clue from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and then let us begin to theorize. Let us begin to make our outlooks more concrete, more assertive. And then our Dalit feminist theory. By making Dalit feminist theory as a case study, I would like to convey this message that it is a time for most of the marginalized sections to theorize themselves and then claim universal relevance to their claims. That's what Gopal Guru says. I conclude here, looking forward to take some questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I enjoyed being here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We also enjoyed your lecture very much. And yeah, so your mic is off. Professor Karunyakara sir is here. So I request Professor Karunyakara sir to please give his remark on today's lecture.
Yeah, Professor Ravi Kumar is today's lecture. As far as I am concerned, he has climbed to the another.
So your voice
breaking, sir. Sir, we can't hear you, sir. Sir, stuck over here.
Yeah.
Now I'm fine. Right. So you last time only I said that. I think to you only I said you are not less than Professor Gopal Guru level of thinking. Yeah. So it's good to hear once again Ravi Kumar, a wonderful lecture. Dalit feminism, very most sought after topic within the Dalit academic circles as well as non-Dalit academic circles who are very curious about what's happening within the Dalit academic circles. To them also, it's a very, very attention seeking kind of topic. And in some or other way, if you want, you could say it's a controversial in the sense that whether Dalit feminism, the very concept of Dalit feminism should be there or not within the broader feminism. So that is put forward by many. However, very happy to see that Dalit feminism is taking its own roots and growing from seed to the plant to the tree. Now it's even giving the fruits in the form of many academic thinkers. And it's a wonderful topic you have selected. You have chosen, Professor Ravi. I think it's very much informative as well as thought provoking to all my young scholars, faculty members, PhD scholars, and doctors, and many academics also. I could see many here. Yeah, it's once again really on behalf of Karunyakara Institute of Dalit Knowledge, Ravi Kumar. This is our second lecture. We'll see that in future also we'll be having some other very interesting topics from your side. We are really this platform, that KIDK. It's really privileged to have such a wonderful lectures, wonderful topics from you. Thank you very much once again, Professor Ravi Kumar.
Thank you. Now we are going to have a question answer session.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wait. I know there is many people who want to ask a question, but so those people who want to ask a question, please raise their hand, and I'm requesting to be specific to today's lecture only. So I request those who ask a question, please raise your hand in your like this option. You have to raise your hand. There is an option in this Google Meet. Yeah, Dr. Kiran Kumar. Yes, Dr. Kiran Kumar. Yes, you are audible. Please go ahead.
Yes. Your lecture is very wonderful, very fantastic, sir. You are very deeply explained topic. You 3 questions. My first question is, how can Dalit feminism inform global feminist movement, particularly in post-colonial context? That is my first question. And second question is, what are the challenges of implementing Dalit feminist ideas in rural versus urban spaces? And third question is, what is the differences between Dalit feminism and Brahminical feminism? What is your view? That is my 3 questions. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Kiran commands one more lecture from me, So, by the way, thank you very much for very curious and very inquisitive questions. I'll be very brief as well, as much I can. See, the first issue is a post-colonial. See, post-colonialism as articulated by Edward Said. And then somehow Edward Said says there is a concept of other, which means that British had made us other, and then Indian Brahminical thinking made us other, made Dalits other. So there is a concept, whole hierarchy of othering. Othering means, you are different than me. And how you are different than me, I will construct ontological characters, philosophical characters. So what happens, you can't use Edward Said idea of post-colonial idea of othering in India, because we have multiple others, not single other. Okay. So therefore, again, going back to Sharmila Regi, most of the Dalit feminists are not comfortable with the post-colonial framework, because post-colonial framework is like a decolonization framework, which says you have a British versus India. But then what happens in Indian context is you have a British exploitation, you also have very formidable other forms of exploitation. They are none inferior than British. So therefore, Edward Said, the idea of post-colonialism, many Dalit feminists says are useless in Indian context. What we need is, we have to go beyond post-colonialism. Okay, that's the position. Beyond post-colonial means, which something like, you have to go to very close to Perry Boudou's concept of symbolic capital. It's again a big concept. Okay. Symbolic capital means we have to give attention to how symbols, culture, and other forms of the emblematic things are created in order to perpetuate exploitation. That's a different story altogether. So therefore, my first question answer to is post-colonial theorization is not cherished by most of the Dalit feminists right now in India. Okay. And then second question he asked, what is the difference between rural and urban? It's again a very big question, because I'm aware of that, because you have two, Dalit women cannot be homogeneous, because you have rural setting, you have urban setting, okay. And then so far as the urban setting is concerned, most of Dalit women are very confident, very articulate, and so far as, but then more than what I feel urban women, rural women are more vocal, what I feel, because with my experience, rural women are very argumentative and very deliberating and very very vocal. Okay, somehow I feel most of the urban Dalit feminists should take more inputs from rural women. That's where, because rural women are very adept in handling conversations. Because that's how very extensive interaction with the rural women, because I myself coming from Dalit family background, I'm quite exposed to the way rural women deal with landlords, rural women deal with many, many other issues. Therefore, that's a different story altogether. And then it commands one more lecture, how to compartmentalize Dalit gender theorization into urban and then rural. So that itself commands a different lecture. Nevertheless, I tell you, there is a clear dichotomy in terms of theory for both urban as well as, but nevertheless, the interest of urban and rural women, they converge into one single point, that is multiple forms of exploitation. The only identity both gender carries, both Dalit women in urban as well as rural sphere, is that there are different forms of exploitation, different forms of microaggressions. They operate simultaneously. As I already mentioned, the theory of intersectionality. And everyone should have the capacity to imbibe the theory of intersectionality. Then you can easily figure out where the problem is coming up. Because otherwise, most of the time, they don't have the capacity to sense these kind of microaggressions. They thought it's natural, but that's not a natural. They have a clear message. Okay. So therefore, that's, and then what's the last question? Post-colonial, rural, urban. And then again, very controversial, Kiran, you asked question, what is the difference between Dalit and non-Dalit women? Let me make it very simple.
Only in context, sir.
Yeah. With reference to my presentation, what I say that you have a Dalit feminism, Brahminical feminism. Now again, Brahminical feminism, nowadays they are calling it a Savarna feminism. The word coined by Sunaina Arya. Savarna feminism represents certain characteristics, certain attributes, which says that, which refuse to apply the notion of difference. Now, somehow they are comfortable with, okay, all women are victims, therefore, they kind of, very blanket solutions, They say that all women are exploited, therefore, all women are same. That is a trademark of, Brahminical feminism. But whereas Dalit feminism says absolutely no, because we have difference. Different in terms of, as I said, spectrum of exploitation, spectrum of violence. And if you don't understand that, degree of spectrum in terms of exploitation, you are, simply touching the superficial reality. You are refusing to go inside beneath the reality. Well, Brahminical feminism says, it talks about focus on superficial. Dalit feminism focuses on under beneath, okay, and understands the different layers of the exploitation, okay. Okay, Kiran, I hope I made you satisfied, in a sense, your intellectual thrust.
Yes,
Amit Kumar,
yes,
please
sir.
ask your question.
Yes, sir. Sir, Dalit feminism theory and praxis. There are three questions in my mind regarding the theory and praxis of Dalit feminism. My question as follows. Sir, firstly, woman is human. Every human, woman, third gender beings should know this fact. अब steply my third question. First question is, she belong to Europe, America, and Asia. Then what is the difference between black feminism and Dalit feminism? And my second question, Dalit feminism theory and praxis, within the difference between Dalit feminism and postmodernism feminism. And third question, sir, please explain in
Amit,
more deep.
Amit, enough. Amit,
Yes, sir.
Amit, I refuse to answer your first question because
Yes,
it's
sir.
very regressive thinking you carry on. Because when you say all women are biological, same, I think it's a regressive thinking. It's not the case. We are all human beings. But if we are all human beings, we should have the same life. Is it the case? Are we enjoying the same life? No, if you say we are all human beings, nature should have given us all the same lifestyle, same building, same car, same assets. Is it the case now? We are suffering from acute inequality. Therefore, I refuse to answer your first question. Please don't carry that regressive thinking. Okay. And then second, the difference between black feminism and Dalit feminism. See, they are one and same. One and same in the sense that, both black feminism, Dalit feminism thrives based upon the notion of difference. Because black feminism says, as I mentioned, intersectionality, it says, black women are more susceptible. ज्यादा एक्सप्लॉइटेशन का शिकार वो लोग बनते हैं क्योंकि नंबर वन वो इकोनॉमिकली वीक होता है ओके वो रेशियली लो सोशल स्टेटस उनको दिया गया है ओके उसके बाद वो ज्यादा एसेप्टिव नहीं बन पाते हैं बिकॉज उनका कल्चरल प्रोग्रामिंग ऐसा है उनको तो ब्लैक फेमिनिज्म सेज ये तीन चीजों की वजह से वो व्हाइट वुमेन से ज्यादा शिकार होने का चांस होता है आई एम नॉट सेइंग एग्जैक्टली ओके एंड देन वहां से वी मोस्ट ऑफ द थर्ड जनरेशन दलित फेमिनिस्ट थ्योरिटिशियंस ठीक है ना वो इंस्पिरेशन लेते हैं ठीक है एंड देन दे आल्सो से द सेम थिंग भाई दे से वो कहते हैं भाई इंडिया में जो दलित वुमेन है दे कैरी ट्रिपल बर्डन्स और ट्रिपल बर्डन क्या है एक है जेंडर दूसरा है कास्ट एंड देन तीसरा है लो इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस ठीक है ना ये तीन चीज जो है साइमल्टेनियसली ऑपरेट करते हैं फिर उसी से एक्सप्लॉयटेशन होता है ठीक है ना सो देयरफॉर आई हैव आंसर्ड योर सेकंड क्वेश्चन एंड थर्ड क्वेश्चन यू हैव आस्क्ड मी पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म एंड दलित फेमिनिज्म See, Dalit feminism was very much inspired by postmodernism, but at the same time, Dalit feminism does not recognize postmodernism. Because postmodernism believes in fragmented consciousness. For example, it believes in if you are a gay, you should work for only gay. Okay. If you are a queer, you should work for only queer. And if you are X, you should only bother about yourself. That's called fragmented consciousness. ठीक है ना वो फ्रैगमेंटेड कॉन्शियसनेस से लिबरेटरी इमांसिपेटरी आइडियाज नहीं बन पाते हैं ठीक है ना इसलिए क्या हुआ दलित फेमिनिस्ट जो है दे आर इंस्पायर्ड फ्रॉम मेथड्स ऑफ पोस्टमॉडर्निज्म बट दे डोंट सपोर्ट द एसेंस ऑफ पोस्टमॉडर्निज्म गेटिंग माय पॉइंट हियर अमित आई होप यू आर सैटिस्फाइड
Yes, sir. I am satisfied, but sir, please explain the more depth how Dalit women have to.
I refuse to answer. I refuse to answer you. That's it.
Yeah, Amit Kumar. Now we are moving toward the other person. So Shashikant Sambodhi, please go ahead.
Sir, Javi, sir, your lecture is excellent, and Sir, how do you view Miss Mayawati and the environment surrounding her? If we clearly say that she is a symbol of inspiration of Dalit women in India, how accurate would that be?
Shashikant, I
Because sir,
repeat.
she belongs to a Dalit community and she is
Listen,
yeah,
it has a two dimensions. I don't want to get into politics
yeah.
because I'm just a academician, more interested in scholarship. Okay, less interested in politics. So therefore, I don't give you answer from political perspective. Okay, that's very clear. Rather, I choose to give you answer from non-political perspective. Okay, non-political perspective, what I mean, Mayawati is undoubtedly, she carries tremendous symbolic capital. I'm using the word Perry Bourdieu's notion of symbolic capital because Mayawati undoubtedly has become a kind of an emblematic figure, of I could say Dalit icon, and then she's almost like emblematic figure in the Dalit symbolic capital. So most of the Dalit women looks towards her for inspiration. There is no doubt about it, being a chief minister of Uttar Pradesh for 3-4 times. So therefore, in that sense, I look at Mayawati as a very positive force, okay, and then exercises tremendous impact upon the thinking process of not only Dalit, but also most of the Adivasi and then other women belong to marginalized sections. She is an example, in fact, I would tell you that how you can raise up to the big level, even though you are born in a very humble background. Okay. So therefore, Shashikant, I can confine myself to only that extent, but then I will not go into the details of what is happening around Mayawati.
No, sir, my question is about she is a symbol of Dalit feminism. I think more specifically, not Dalit community, Dalit feminism, because the Dalit women see herself as an icon to how to empower yourself and how to boost your strength. This thing. Yeah.
She carries symbolic capital, but then if you see the most of the Dalit feminist writings, it's not Mayawati, it's a Veeramma from South India.
Yeah.
She was more iconic. Why she was more like a very illiterate woman, she's illiterate woman, but then most of the Dalit feminists take inspiration from her because she actually comes up with how Dalit women should be. So with the due regards to other characters, Dalit feminism has their own likings and dislikings. Okay.
Thanks.
Santosh Kumar. Santosh Kumar, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, sir. I remember my MA days and the lectures, how you taught us, and the same I got from this lecture as well. And I congratulate you, sir, for this wonderful lecture because you started with this knowledge and power. Knowledge is power. Then you said the theorization is power somehow. And the last submission, what you made, that micro-analysis, that given us more food for thought, more ideas for further explorations. So I congratulate you, sir, once again. My small doubt is there. It's not a question, it's a kind of doubt what I'm having, that how to go for this micro-analysis and then further to the policy formulation, a kind of policy paper what we may create through our research. That thing we somehow miss. We used to do researches, but how it will reach to the policy level, how we'll pursue or how we'll address to the policy makers that they may consider those points within those micro studies and then the policy things. Within Dalit studies frame, Dalit.
Thank you, Dr. Santosh, for your kind words. And then, in fact, you raised a very pertinent question. What I mean to say, micro level studies, for example, you have a corporate sector and you have PR divisions, for example, you have public relation divisions. I feel somehow the idea of caste and then looking at the whole idea of gender from caste perspective is still a missing link. Thereby, what I'm suggesting, micro level studies, what I refer to is you should be able to connect this gender theorization, especially Dalit feminist theory, into different sectoral locations. For example, corporate sector could be one example. It should take up in a very big way because more and more women began to work in several offices nowadays. So you must have that angle, Dalit gender angle into the PR, because that's where you can solve many problems, And then right now it is a missing link, And somehow Dalit feminists did not engage with psychology, for example. Okay, psychology and public relations, industrial relations. These are very important components, what I feel. And then once the Dalit gender studies percolate into these small streams, sectors, they will play a fabulous role. What I mean, fabulous role in the sense, they can be very resourceful to employer. They can be very resourceful to the office people. They can really manage easily most of the problems right now we are facing. And somehow there is a hiatus right now between, the kind of knowledge, gender knowledge that is generated by the Dalit feminists. It has not been become part of the mainstream. That is what I'm saying. Like what Shemla Regi says, it's not the polemics. It's about, we have to always see that how this Dalit feminist theorization could be useful in facilitating gender relations into different sectors, be it a hospital, be it a school, be it a corporate sector, or be it even in a cinemas, be it in many other things. And this Dalit gender theorization has that capacity to address multiple problems, which became really problems nowadays because of the many women began to work in public space. So Santosh, I conclude you saying that, I refer, what I mean micro level studies, I refer to the gender theorization from Dalit perspective should percolate to different spheres. And how, your question is how it percolates, it's a very big, qualitative question, it's ethical question, But I feel knowledge theorization is like a bank, a treasury. Once you accumulate your treasury, you can always use that at any point of time. While money belongs to you, but knowledge belongs to society. Society will always take whatever it wants as and when conditions are ripe. And you have to wait for that.
Thank you, sir.
Santosh,
Thank you.
Mr. Durgesh? Acha. Okay. Manish Kumar.
Good morning, sir. I am audible, sir.
Yes, you are.
Manish, yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, Jai Bhim to all of you, sir. Sir, Ravi, sir, your lecture is very fantastic and truthful among all of them, sir. Sir, my question is, sir, not question, sir, doubt only. Sir, how to difference between Brahminical patriarchy and Dalit patriarchy? एंड इसमें सर दोनों में से दलित वुमेन्स को सर किसने ज्यादा हार्मफुल पहुंचाया, किसने से ज्यादा सर ऑपरेसिव किया है? सर माय सेकंड क्वेश्चन इज सर इन टर्म्स ऑफ पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म सर एंड दलित फेमिनिज्म सर इन दोनों पोस्ट मॉडर्निज्म सर दलित फेमिनिज्म में सर इसको कैसे, पिछले क्वेश्चन में आपने सर आंसर दे दिया था इसका, लेकिन सर हमारा क्वेश्चन इससे थोड़ा डिफरेंट है सर, इसको कैसे एक्सेलरेट किया जाए, कैसे ग्रैंड नैरेटिव को डेवलप किया जाए सर? थैंक यू सर.
मनीष फंसा दिया हमको तुम. So I thought of escaping this, but then you compelled me to do so. But I'm happy to do so. By the way, It's a very controversial question in the entire conceptual terrain of Dalit feminist theory. While, right from Uma Chakravarti, and there are many women who are working on Dalit feminist theory, and then perhaps not belong to Dalit background, they deploy the analytical category of Dalit patriarchy. Okay. And then Dalit patriarchy, they refer that, look, we have different patriarchies, multiple patriarchies, Brahminical patriarchy, we have Adivasi patriarchy. And then they claim that, Dalit patriarchy is equally responsible for oppression of Dalit women. And then unfortunately, Gopal Guru, in his 1993 paper, Dalit women talks differently. He also implicitly, if not explicitly, endorses, Dalit patriarchy hai. But then later on, many people criticize Gopal Guru. Gopal Guru, what hell are you talking? Yes, Dalit patriarchy is there. Patriarchy is universal. There is no doubt about it. But is it the same? What is the crux of the patriarchy? If you compare Brahminical patriarchy, Dalit patriarchy, most of the thinkers like Akash Singh Rathod, I refer to, and then Sailja Paik, they say that Dalit patriarchy is a invented myth. It's not my idea, I'm saying it's an invented conceptual myth by some people in order to liquidate the emancipatory potential of Dalit studies. Okay. And then they also say that, the Dalit patriarchy is a big myth which justifies Dalit women oppression and thereby camouflage. Yeah, in a way it blurs actually, hide the real center from where the problem is coming. So that's the reason why most of the scholarship nowadays refutes, most of the recent gender theoreticians, they said Dalit patriarchy is a myth planted by some people. There is a patriarchy, there is no doubt about it. But then we are all aware of that. Dalit patriarchy, it also, I don't say that there is no Dalit patriarchy, but then there is a significant qualitative difference in terms of how Brahminical patriarchy operates and then how the Dalit patriarchy operates. I simply give an example. A mensuration, I'm using, I don't know why, mensuration is a thing, And I don't think in the Dalit life world, people give importance to that. Okay. So therefore, they say it's just natural, it comes and goes away. So there are no injections imposed upon that specific time. So that is a way, Manish, you have to understand how Dalit patriarchy, the character of Dalit patriarchy. Okay. And then was second question is zarut nahi hai, that.
Yep. Thank you. Is there Smita Bhagat? Dr. Smita Bhagat is there? Yeah. So might be Dr. Smita Bhagat also raised her hand, but she's not available here. So I think we have to move for a vote of thanks because we already passed our time. So, do you want to say something, sir?
No, one Durgesh is there.
Yeah, Durgesh.
Take him last question. Durgesh.
Mr. Durgesh, please ask your question.
सर मैं थोड़ा डाउट में आ गया. आपने कहा कि दलित पैट्रियार्की को आपने डिनाइल कर दिया, जबकि मैंने अभी रिसेंटली पढ़ा कि डॉक्टर साहब ने खुद लिखा है कि दलित विमेंस डबल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन फेस करती हैं. एक तो है सर ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ पैट्रियार्की एंड सेकंड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कास्ट. मेरा जो क्वेश्चन है,
हाँ Durgesh, you say that Dalit patriarchy is on par with the Brahminical patriarchy. Is that so? Your question?
जो क्वेश्चन है डॉक्टर साहब का एक स्टेटमेंट है.
हाँ, बताओ.
No, sir.
Durgesh, go on.
This is not my question. This is Dr. Saab.
So actually,
Okay, 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 sir. Sir, मेरा एक स्टेटमेंट है जो डॉक्टर साहब का स्टेटमेंट
सबका नहीं, तुम्हारा बता दो दुर्गेश। इसका कुछ आई थिंक सम टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम। दुर्गेश।
So actually, I just want to.
सर वॉइस।
हाँ दुर्गेश।
सर वॉइस क्लियर नहीं हो पा रही है साइड मेरी।
हाँ दुर्गेश, we can hear you. Come on, be crisp.
ओके थैंक्स सर। क्वेश्चन क्लियर नहीं हो पा रहा है मेरा सर, मेरी साइड से वॉइस प्रॉब्लम हो रही है।
You don't carry. I mean, you can ask me, Durgesh, because you know, because I'm here too. I'm capable of answering you. Don't worry.
ओके ओके सर। सर डॉक्टर साहब का एक स्टेटमेंट है, फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट कि दलित विमेन्स डबल डिस्क्रिमिनेशन फेस करती हैं, फर्स्ट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ कास्ट एंड सेकंड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ पैट्रियार्की। तो वो कौन सी पैट्रियार्की की बात कर रहे हैं? एंड सेकंड क्वेश्चन है, वो दलित मेल को क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे हैं कि आप ज्यादा इमोरल हो बनिस्पत ऑफ विमेन, यानी कि दलित विमेन्स ज्यादा मोरल वैल्यूज रखती हैं रेदर देन मेल।
Okay, Durgesh, you are saying Ambedkar himself accepted Dalit patriarchy, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, let me make my position very clear.
Ravi, Professor Ravi Kumar, I would like to intervene here. Just give me a half a second.
Please.
Mr. Durgesh, you are quoting Ambedkar. You see, I read that quotation. It's not exactly how you are putting it. You read out exact lines of the Ambedkar. You read out. You must read out when you are quoting Ambedkar. You must read out exact lines of Ambedkar with the source of the a quote. See, that's not the way how Ambedkar said. I read those lines. He was giving a public lecture. There he was encouraging the women more contribution in comparison to the man, and how they take up the family burden, everything, and how much women is relevant and important for the building the society, particularly the Dalit society. That's what he was referring. He was not talking about any feminism point of view or something like that. If you insist on that your position, then you must give a source and read out exact words of Ambedkar, because the wording you use, vocabulary used, that's never used by Ambedkar. That feminism, something like that, you used it. No, it's not like that. So patriarchy, no, he didn't use that. So that kind of words. Mr. Durgesh, why I'm intervening to you that I'm expertized on Ambedkar thought and this thing. For past 25 years, I'm doing that, teaching Ambedkar. So that's why if you are sincere about your position, then give a quote, exact Ambedkar words with a reference. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Durgesh, you should be aware of the one thing. Several feminists, so-called Savarna feminists, they use the same quotation what you used. And then they use the speech delivered by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to the Kamatipura ladies. Okay. And then by saying that, they say Ambedkar is not feminist enough. That's a main criticism. But Durgesh, you have to remember one thing. When a personality makes some words, and then you have to see how that particular intellectual consistently taking a position on certain concepts. That is a proof. भाई जो इंटेलेक्चुअल के बारे में हम लोग कहेंगे, एक सेंटेंस ले लिया है, एक वर्ड ले लिया, उसको जनरलाइज करना एक सुपरफिशियल है. उससे भला ये होगा, ये कॉन्सेप्ट एक इंटेलेक्चुअल से ले रहा है, फिर वो इंटेलेक्चुअल वो कॉन्सेप्ट को कंसिस्टेंटली कैसा डील किया है, वो अनदर टेस्ट है. But if you put these two tests, you fail miserably. Because Dr. B.R. Ambedkar never ever developed what you are suggesting is a category of Dalit patriarchy. I don't think Professor Karunyakara is here. He may be correct. He can correct me. I never come across any such a formulation by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar which says very clearly that Dalit men oppress Dalit women. Is it, sir? I have never come across any kind of,
No. He never said. He never said. What Durgesh was quoting that Kamadpura talk only.
Kamadpura.
Yeah.
I read it several times.
I'm sure that Durgesh is not, reading from the original source. He must be picking up from secondary source, or he might have understood differently from any other sources. Mr. Durgesh, I appreciate that you have raised this issue, but Professor Ravi Kumar and myself, we encourage you to read that particular sentences from the original primary sources of Ambedkar. You better contact Professor Ravi Kumar personally. He could give you the direction where it is available. But Ambedkar never used the word like vocabulary like a Dalit patriarchy, nothing like that. No, and a man oppressing more of Dalit women. No. Never ever in his anywhere in his writings and public speeches he didn't take it. He emphasized the importance of the women to the Dalit women, to the building of society, family, in comparison to the man. And he also insisted that women should be educated more. That's what he was talking. Not only that Kamatipura, even in other public lectures also addressing to the Dalit women. He addressed many Dalit women conferences where also he emphasized the women importance. He never put women against the man or man against the women in the context of Dalit. No. I didn't come across. I'm sure about that. Ambedkar never took such a stand. This is one thing. And Professor Ravi Kumar is right that it's not the exact wording of the Ambedkar. One thing Professor Ravi Kumar very clearly stated that you can't pick one sentence or one statement, even if it is. I'm sure these words are not from the Ambedkar, but any position, if we want to assess the Ambedkar's the thought or thinking, his thought process, his views, we can't pick up one word or one sentence randomly somewhere in a fluke of moment, or in a casual talk, or even if it is in a public lecture or serious writing also. We can't pick up one sentence and portray it as his thesis. No, we can't do it. We can't put it as his own concept. Yes, Professor Ravi Kumar is right. When we have to say that, when we say that it is Ambedkar's view, then we have to test that word in consistency of that word. How many times he used it, in what context he used it, and how he is taking a position frequently on such a issue, or such a whatever issue is addressing. So those things we have to take. Consistency is a test, which Professor Ravi Kumar rightly suggested. So unfortunately, many of people who are dealing with Ambedkar, they come up with one single line or some random picking up some word and portraying that this is what Ambedkar stand. This is what you should be like Ambedkar. It's we can't theorize something called Ambedkarism not on those lines. So it's very if we being in a serious academics, if you want to theorize something called Ambedkarism or something called Dalit thought, we need to put a such a test where it is really made whether it is those concepts have been really theorized by the Ambedkar or not, or whether or if you are picking up certain words or certain ideas. Really, Ambedkar stood those things in different times of his life. Those things we have to check it out. This is the way how we can understand be it Dalit thought, be it Ambedkar. I'm happy that Professor Ravi Kumar patiently giving answers to all. I'm too happy that this is what we are lacking in Dalit academic circles. Serious academicians sit together, they speak, they write. But when it comes to young scholars and doctorates and young academicians, we don't have any platform. That is the reason we have created KIDK, and very happy that senior scholars like Professor Ravi and senior most scholars like Professor Chennarao, many professors also delivered their lectures here. I'm happy this KIDK is taking up that cause of enlightening or giving space to the young scholars, giving exposure to the young scholars to the senior faculty members' thoughts. Yeah, please carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I request Shashikant Sambodhi to please give an official vote of thanks.
Thank you, my friend, for this opportunity. First of all, we as KIDK are deeply thankful to Dalit historian and Ambedkarite thinker, Professor Dr. L. Karunyakara sir, for chairing the session, and eminent Professor of History, Professor V.M. Ravi Kumar sir, for delivering an enlightening lecture on Dalit feminism, theory and praxis. Professor Ravi Kumar sir has rightly described that feminism is a critical ideology. This ideology questions the establishment. According to Professor, Western feminism decentered the male-dominated system and recentered the social system based on equality. According to Professor, Dalit feminism has its own genesis. For him, Ambedkar's caste in India is to be seen as a text of feminism. Along with this, we extend our sincere gratitude to all the participants and attendees of 19th online lecture of KIDK lecture series. Special appreciation goes to the coordinator, Dr. Sukeshni, Dr. Darshana Mishram, Dr. Smita Bhagat, Mr. Akash Khobragade, Mr. Shreyat and Mr. Vijay Kumre for their dedicated efforts. Launched on Ambedkar Jayanti 2025, this series continues to enrich Dalit knowledge studies. Thank you for your valuable participation. Lastly, we kindly request you to subscribe to the Dalit Knowledge YouTube channel, where this recorded session will be uploaded soon. Jai Bhim. The session is over.
Thank you very much.